From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gornosky. So glad to be with you all once again across the Sunshine State on FM and AM. Happy to have you with us as we go live in search of the truth behind the fake news headlines. That's what we're here for. And I'm excited to have this time with you. And let's hit the ground running. There's a lot of headlines going on, but first I want to give you a quote to kind of give you some food for thought as we unpack the headlines of today. This is, give people a common enemy and you will give them a common identity. Deprive them of an enemy and you will deprive them of the crutch by which they know who they are. That's James Allison. And I think that is so relevant for our time today. You know, I was looking at one of the commenters on our website. We have our website, of course, is aneighborschoice.com. That's aneighborschoice.com. You can go on our Facebook, A Neighbor's Choice, join us there, or YouTube, or find our podcast wherever podcasts are. And I saw a commenter. They were talking about how Senator Rand Paul, we saw that ugly scene where he was being chased by a vicious mob, pushing and shoving and trying to get to him and his wife. And, the comment, which I've made myself, which is that Senator Rand Paul has done more to bring back the rule of law and to bring back respect and dignity in the field of justice than any of the nasty folks in that Antifa mob. He's done more to try to stop things like no-knock raids, which is what was the situation with Breonna Taylor and her death. He's done more to try to stop the out-of-control victimless crime laws that have accrued in our federal registry in terms of the kind of laws that we have on the books to criminalize everything from Amish soap to raw milk to every kind of thing you can imagine in between, especially in this new pandemic political situation that we find ourselves. And yet, this is a man who has tried to stop the no-win forever wars that occupy millions of people of color overseas. He's done more to do all those things that help to benefit the lives of everyone, but including millions of minorities caught up in an unfair drug war, in an unfair justice system. He's done a lot to stop that. And what did the Antifa folks do? They had to try to kill this man. They were trying to get at him and his family. And someone made a comment, I just thought it was so well. He said, basically, they don't want someone like Rand Paul because Rand Paul makes too much sense. And they want to demonize the other side. So if they have someone on the other side who's friends with the president of the president of the United States, but he's also the top of the Republican Party, and he's got the ear, Senator Rand Paul does, and he is saying things like get rid of no-knock raids and get rid of victimless crime laws and create, tax-free zones in inner-city communities, all of these things which empower people of color. Millions of folks would benefit from his policies that way better than what Biden or Kamala Harris would ever provide in terms of actually getting rid of the unjust situations in our justice system today. But that's precisely why they have such a vicious hatred for him, because he represents the best of the side that they want nothing but demonization for. They can't tolerate someone who thinks very well and is very articulate and very compassionate and doing a great job to represent justice for the least of these in our society, because if they have that, then what do they have to hate? And they'd rather have someone to hate than they would to have someone who's effective at solving the problems. It's more solidifying to their need to have a tribe, to have a common enemy that is as vicious and as evil as possible, than to have a common enemy with diverse perspectives, where you have folks like Tom Cotton and you have folks like Rubio who wants to be in wars all the time. Most of the time, I guess he's changing his rhetoric now. You got vote folks from this way and that way, but you have a person like Rand Paul, who's done more to help people of color than anybody on the top of the Democratic Party, or anybody in their bench, really. in terms of empowering people's personal liberties and protecting them from unjust police actions, police militarization. He's been against it all. But that's exactly why they hate him, because he's too effective at doing the things that they say they're for, but really what they really want to do is have a united enemy that they can otherize as a monster, that they can turn into some kind of monolith that is totally unrecognizable in terms of being, something that can be relatable. Like, our neighbors, right? They don't want us to see each other as our neighbors. They want us divided and hating each other. And this political situation continues to do exactly that. I just can't understand. They call themselves the resistance, but I call them Mick resistance. They call themselves woke. I say they're Mick woke because there's nothing authentic about their desires. All they want to do is spread hate and chaos. And most of these folks come from rich families. These Antifa folks who dress up like Foot Clan soldiers from the Ninja Turtles movie. A lot of them came from that generation. They grew up on that movie, and I guess they always wanted to be, they should have been wanted to be the good guys, but I guess they thought it was too cool to be one of the Foot Clan soldiers from Shredder's army, from Ninja Turtles. So they dress up like that, and they think they're cool. But what kind of a Mick resistance is fighting on the side of the leaders of the FBI? Folks like Comey and folks like CIA leader Brennan and the NSA, Clapper, globalist banks and corporations. What kind of resistance is so pathetic that they're on the same side as all the establishment elites? That is a sorry resistance, even if by the standards of a Marxist, if we're going to play and give them the benefit of the doubt, even by the standards of Uncle Jealous himself, Karl Marx, they're doing a sorry job. Because at least those classic Marxists, well, they were always funded by big corporations. But at least they knew how to put on a good show and make you feel like they actually really had a purpose. These folks, they're just brats, rich brats that want to hurt and bully grandmothers and hurt and bully people that are doing stuff to actually stop the problems they say they're against. And they do everything to go on the side of the establishment. There are these Antifa Foot Clan soldiers, these cosplayers that are missing their Comic-Cons because of the lockdown. These folks do more to help Comey and Clapper and Brennan and giant corporations and the Pentagon establishment because they're doing the work to try to normalize the fact that the one-party machine should stay in power, that you shouldn't end the endless wars. That's what Trump wants to do. That you shouldn't have bipartisan criminal justice reform like what's happened. They don't want that. They want hate. They want tearing people down. They want to pit people against each other because they're jealous. They're jealous of people who have joy. But that's okay because they can have it too. But they have to learn to get out of the groupthink possession that plagues their mind, that robs them of their God-given joy. But isn't that pathetic? Even by the Marxist standards, these guys are living in a fantasy. These guys are on the side of all the heads of the deep state apparatus of surveillance, the heads of all the banks and corporations. I mean, all these people have joined in normalizing their fiery rage against grandmothers in the streets of Portland and all over around this country. I saw a video today of Biden voters and Antifa viciously chasing after a young girl. And I don't know why the young girl was brought to that vicious area, but whatever the reason was, you see this kid running and running and running from a vicious, angry mob of Biden voters. Why are they so vicious? Why do they think they're resisting when they're doing everything in their power to entrench the current globalist apparatus? It doesn't make sense. I'm not asking them to support Trump. I'm asking them to be consistent. If you resist that which you say you resist, like police brutality, why are you doing the work of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who is a crooked cop, to say the least? And Biden is a person who's been doing the work of the military establishment the military-industrial establishment for decades, going into every war, where what do? We occupy people of color overseas for decades and decades and decades. And how those wars have they been sold to us? They've been sold to us by the same suspects who are now telling us that they are the avant-garde of social justice concern. Folks like the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN have always been selling the public. We got to go to war in Libya. We got to go to war in Yemen, or at least be involved in helping the Saudi Arabians and their social justice aspirations in that country. We have to go and do the work in Iraq for endless decades. We have to be in Afghanistan forever. We have to be, involved with regime change in Egypt. We have to be involved in regime change everywhere you look. And who has always been there all along, micromanaging some of these different schemes on behalf of powerful interests? Joe Biden. This is a man who has done his job being a yes man for the occupation of people of color overseas, and the people in the McWoke crowd, they get torn up inside because they know they're doing the dirty work of trying to intimidate people into going along, into submitting to the establishment that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris represent. Well, that's not going to happen because A Neighbor's Choice is going to set the record straight. We're going to cut through the noise and confusion. We're going to break through the hive mind of our media, groupthink apparatus, and bring you the truth. I'm David Granosky. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We'll be back in just a moment.
Paid non-attorney spokesperson. This is
And we're back in about 2 minutes.
Houston, Texas.
Attention all former Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts. If you were sexually abused by an adult scout leader, even if the abuse happened decades ago, listen closely, as you may be entitled to substantial compensation. The Boy Scouts of America have billions of dollars in assets and have agreed to set up a victim compensation fund for victims of child sexual abuse, even if the abuse happened decades ago. Our attorneys can file a claim for you and get you the justice and closure you deserve while you remain completely anonymous. If you suffered abuses from scout leaders and those who knew about the abuse but failed to stop it, call our law firm's confidential Scout Abuse Helpline at 800-631-7078, as you may be entitled to substantial compensation. But hurry, as time is running out to file a claim. Call 800-631-7078 right now to see if you are eligible for substantial compensation. Call 800-631-7078. That's 800-631-7078. 800-631-7078.
30 seconds.
You just don't feel like yourself. New Natrol Relaxia, a full line of drug-free supplements to help you manage occasional stress and anxiety. A special blend of herbals keeps you feeling calm and balanced throughout the day. Because when there's less stress, there's more you. Try new Natrol Relaxia. Learn more at relaxiamood.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Go anytime. Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Granosky, your host. You can call in at 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. We're live across Florida, and our podcast and video live stream, YouTube and Facebook. Happy to have you with us. And I was just looking at this story here that is on Axios.com. It says exclusive. Dim Group, I don't know if it's DIM or DEM. Dim Group warns of apparent Trump election day landslide. A top Democratic data and analytics firm told Axios on HBO it's highly likely that President Trump will appear to have won, potentially in a landslide, on election night, even if he ultimately loses when all the votes are counted. Why this matters. Way more Democrats will vote by mail than Republicans due to fears of the coronavirus, and it will take days, if not weeks, to tally these. This means Trump, thanks to Republicans doing almost all of their voting in person, could hold big electoral college and popular vote leads on election night. Imagine America with its polarization and misinformation If the vote tally swings wildly toward Joe Biden and Trump loses days later as the mail ballots are counted. That is what this group, Hawkfish, which is funded by Michael Bloomberg and also does work for the Democratic National Committee and pro-Biden super PACs, is warning is a very real, if not foreordained outcome. Wow. Hawkfish CEO Josh Mendelson says the scenario he calls the scenario a red mirage. Uh-oh. This is just, again, more fake news disguised as if it's somehow some kind of neutral observation of reality. Fake news disguised as some kind of, oh, we're just trying to warn you, we can see into the future. No, what you're doing is you're trying to get ahead of the narrative, to plant doubts, to plant chaos, because you don't want to accept democracy, your God, when your God slaps you in the face with results you don't like. And now they're trying to make it look like all the folks out there are screaming and burning things down and hurting people of color and smashing up inner city communities and destroying their neighborhoods and destroying people who've done nothing to them. Scapegoating, scapegoating, scapegoating. Now they're trying to act like that had nothing to do with the narratives that these fake news Pravda cheap imitations stoked. Oh, we had nothing to do with it, they say. We're just neutral observers from Mount Olympus ourselves. We've done nothing to do this. Remember when Joe Biden was saying he'd like to beat up Donald Trump? You know, he'd like to fight him in the back. I mean, they have been stoking this viciousness ever since. Remember Maxine Waters? She was talking about, oh, we got to chase them and get in their faces and all this stuff. They were always using language of aggression because that's the game of politics. Politics is, what do they say? Warfare by other means. Well, now that it's not working, now that big government and all of its mythologies are falling apart left and right, it starts to look a lot more like just good old-fashioned warfare, doesn't it? It starts to look a lot more ugly. It's because we've spent too much time trusting in these all-seeing state to police the world from all the boogeymen that we're scared of, to police the world to the tune of $1 trillion. And I don't care if you like the warmongers, like the establishment of the Republican Party and Democrats. I don't care if that's your thing. You want to remake the world like Woodrow Wilson did, that genius, right? If that's what you want to do, pay for it yourself. Stop trying to bankrupt our children for your Machiavellian interest to remake the world in some kind of Jeffersonian republic. You want to make Afghanistan a Jeffersonian republic? You do it on your dime. You stop taking our money, stop taking our children's money, stop bankrupting the future because you think that the Taliban's ready to do Rousseau and John Locke tomorrow. Okay? You figure that out if you're a genius that can do that. You stop being a socialist. And we have to call out the last vestige of that in conservatives and Republicans too, because at least we can have this conversation of peace. And let's reclaim the high ground for common sense. If we're going to say you're a republic, you can't be a republic and spend $1 trillion overseas, maintaining hundreds of bases overseas, maintaining these no-win, forever conflicts that are bankrupting our country, destroying the goodwill of our nation in regards to the people around the world. It's not working. It's not working. It's not working. We have to stop. Meanwhile, we have other folks who are more into intervention as it pertains to state and cure. That is, they want us to wait for the state and global organizations like the WHO to come up together with one-size-fits-all solutions for our body and our health. As it pertains to this new virus, they've been using this as a great opportunity to try to consolidate power into the hands of things like the WHO. Washington Post laments, the U.S. says it won't join WHO-linked effort to develop, distribute coronavirus vaccine. I want you to think for a moment, regardless of which side you like politically, which you like, Team Red or Team Blue, just think about the headline there. The Washington Post is lamenting that the U.S. won't join WHO-linked efforts to develop and distribute a coronavirus vaccine. And I have a problem with the national efforts to try to pick and choose which virus to use. I don't care who's doing it. That's not how you do medicine. I believe in separation of state and cure. Don't you? But you think about this for a second. Have you ever seen how much avarice and corruption goes into building a small road in your town? Have you seen how, we all know this. You peek into under the hood of everyday city politics or county politics, and you see how much viciousness and pettiness and sneakiness goes on into trying to figure out who's going to build a road, a small road. How much corruption and collusion and all kinds of things goes on in the dark for a small little local project. And how much more so, why can't we apply that same skepticism to giant micromanaging global schemes like a WHO managed solution for a virus? Think about that. Just whatever you're leftist or whoever you are, why can't we apply? We all know, go look into who gets the construction contract for your commission for this thing and that thing, and who they know on the commission, and which groups are patting their pockets. It's this nasty little good old boy network. We know that. And if it's that bad for $1 million contract or a $50,000 profit or something from a small little thing, how much more so would you think that the corruption of man's heart would seep into something like a global government funded and distributed vaccine or any kind of thing? I don't care if it's, look at what the WHO says you're supposed to eat. A lot of those things that they tell you to eat are the things that give you the immunocompromised situation that makes this new virus and other things much more dangerous for the immune system to deal with. They encourage you to eat vegetable oils, which are inflammatory. They encourage you to eat massive amounts of carbohydrates. And they encourage you to stay away from saturated fats. We now know that the food pyramid was totally lying, total pseudoscience quackery that got people to get rid of butter, which grandma ate, and switch over to margarine. Why is it that those generations, the greatest generation, a lot of those folks lived really, really long lives? They were eating ancestrally closer to what is more natural. Raw butter, good old-fashioned beef. And they told us, get rid of the beef and go eat a nasty and possibly awful burger. Some soy goop squeezed out of a tube. Nasty. Who wants that nonsense? They told us, get rid of the butter. Butter will get you. And switch over to margarine. It turns out margarine creates the awful, unstable cellular walls, which causes so much inflammation to build up over time. And I think it's one of the reasons why people have had, problems with skin cancer in older generations, because they were told to switch over to margarine, and they eat that for decades and decades and decades. And then inflammatory, unstable fat from these vegetable oils end up creating damage and difficulty in healing over time with sun exposure. So you see how they create this situation where we have weak immune systems, we have inflammation, we have insulin resistance by their garbage food pyramid, and then we're supposed to be mad like the groupthink sheep media when the WHO, when we're not going to participate in some kind of WHO global managed search for a drug. I believe in total separation of state and cure. I believe that medicine is most effectively understood when we have skin in the game. When folks who tell you to do something actually have skin in the game for the things they say. Who in the food pyramid, how about Ansel Keys, the guy who built so much of the modern establishment dogmas about food, nutrition, demonizing saturated fat and directing people towards massive carbohydrates in its place? Did he ever get accountability for what he did? No, none of the bureaucrats do, because they don't have skin in the game. They don't have skin in the game. And that's what's the beautiful thing about a so-called market. A market just means responsibility. It means you have to be responsible for that which you tell people. And if you make fraudulent claims, you will be held liable. If you're government, you can make fraudulent claims every single day and you get more funding. You actually get bigger budgets the more bogus information you peddle, because the problem gets bigger, and therefore you get the opportunity to expand your power and reach. You see how it works, folks? It's a totally perverse incentive when you don't go to the state. And that's for everything. That's for, if you want to go to the state to make the Afghanistan country a paradise for Jeffersonian values, like the geniuses want to do, or if you want government and global governance to manage our health choices, our medical decisions, and so forth. All of it's a bad idea. Back in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
When you're stressed, you just don't feel like yourself. New Natral Relaxia, a full line of
2 minutes
to help you manage occasional stress and anxiety. A special blend of herbals keeps you feeling calm and balanced throughout the day. Because when there's less stress, there's more you. Try new Natral Relaxia.
By the way, David, this is Kelly. I'm going to be the new guy taking over time once he flees to the tropics. Just trying some stuff out over him.
Cure or
All
prevent
right,
any
Kelly,
disease.
good to meet you.
Hey, it's Melissa Fox from Good Morning Orlando. Join me Thursday nights at 9 o'clock when I do my thing called Connection Show. It's relationship radio with a twist. We invite experts in the field to come and help us out with everything from relationship problems to health questions and more. Sponsored by Stages of Life Medical Institute in Longwood every Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Listen to the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Search Connection Show.
The Budman here for my friends at Mills Air. The Florida heat and humidity are with us, and if you haven't taken advantage of the Mills Air $69.95 Bud Special to get your air conditioning unit in shape, you better do it today. For just $69.95, the Bud Special gets you a 20-point precision tune-up from a Mills Air specialist that'll wind up saving you money. Mills Air services all brands. They're a certified carrier dealer. Turn to Mills Air for the amazing $69.95 Bud Special. Call 407-277-1159 online.
30 seconds.
What would you do with a grand in your hand? Listen from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays, just after the top of the hour, for your chance to win $1,000 on News Radio WFLA Orlando.
Are you struggling with ED? Enhanced Medical Clinic has a treatment that does not require medication. Call now to get a $300 assessment free. 407-499-1000. Call Enhanced Medical and put a stop to your ED. 407-499-1000.
Whenever you're ready.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski, your host here. The number to call in is 407-916-5400. That's 407-916-5400. We're live here across the Sunshine State in our website, aneighborschoice.com. Go there for all of our interviews that you missed. We have exclusive online-only content, articles, interviews with the biggest thinkers and newsmakers in the game today in the field of all kinds of subjects. We don't just do politics. As you know, on Thursday, we do our Science and You show. That's where you and I go through all kinds of exciting stories in the field of science. And we do that with our physicist friend, Dr. Yu. But right now, we're dealing with the problem. Our show's very simple. If you want to know the formula, the problem is politics. The solution is you and I working together, neighbor to neighbor, rolling up our sleeves, putting our skin into the game, and not relying on government edict and fighting over who's going to have power over this Leviathan state. That's the solution. Just turn away from it. That's what all your favorite movies tell you, and you love them, right? You watch movies like Lord of the Rings, and people make those the biggest movies in the box office for world history. Why is it? Because it's saying the same message that I'm telling you today in a very gritty and realistic way as it relates to the headlines you see around you. And that message is, you see that ring of power? You can try to manage it every way you want. You can say, well, we'll have this team red, we'll have it because they'll do $10 trillion in debt, not $15 trillion. Isn't that better? No, it's not. You're still trying to put on that ring of power like Frodo, and you're still trying to use it and wield that awesome absolute power in a way that will never give you the results that you expect because you're making that thing an idol. Power consumes you. and absolute power will consume you absolutely. And that's what you have to realize. There is no way to get solutions that you want. What do you want? You want to have a good education. If you want a good education, you're not going to get it from getting a centralized government to tell you how to run your education. You're going to get it from having skin in the game. Because what happens, think about it, when you go to a restaurant, they have skin in the game. They've got to deliver a product that is wonderful, the best quality they can maximize at the best price. And if they do a sloppy quality product at a extremely high price, they're going to be out of business. That's not what you get with government. Where they do a bad job at education, they get more funding. And they get worse and worse and worse because they're a monopoly. Imagine if I say it all the time, imagine if government said, hey, we're not going to have all these different rental stores renting tapes. Imagine we're back in the 90s for a second, right? Blockbuster is going to be the monopoly. There will only be one place to rent tapes for movies and video games. Blockbuster. And then along comes Netflix and they say, excuse me, don't you know the law? You don't have any option. Government has decreed it's too dangerous to have multiple markets because markets are for greedy people. So we're going to let Blockbuster be the official state-approved place to rent movies so that the state can make sure everybody's watching the good stuff and not the bad stuff. So how would Netflix have come up? Would have been criminalized, right? They would have been criminalized. And we'd still be going to get VHS tapes and paying $15 late fees if you're 2 days late. And $8 popcorn. And $12 snow caps, right? And now we don't have that, right? Now we have Netflix and, of course, they've got glorious things like keeping up with the Obamas and all the Netflix specials they've got. They're not keeping up with all the wars they started, are they? They're not talking about that on the Netflix shows. But nevertheless, so we don't have a perfect situation, but we have a better situation than perhaps what it was if we had had a government-decreed monopoly. Well, how do you think it's any different with education? If you don't want a monopoly in something so superfluous as what you're going to watch for Friday night, then why would you want a monopoly for the most important thing that you could probably invest your time or money into, which is the education of your children? Education is not a product or a service. It's a way of life. It's what they see and the way they imitate you when no one's looking. How you do your job, how you do your business, how you do conflict resolution, how you deal with people who are fake, how you deal with people who try to get you, off your game, get you off your step. That's education. But the way you do it, right, whether it's homeschool or micro school or co-ops or private school, it shouldn't be government school. Do your very best to stay out of that system. I was seeing some of the photos people are sharing, and it's showing these kids, they have to circle their work they have to do. It shows these pictures of these cartoon characters. Circle the character that has the mask on properly. Come on. That's what you're teaching. I mean, these people have jumped the shark. And it's not the people. There's rock stars that work in government school. I always say that because people are so emotional about this stuff. They get so hardwired that if you criticize government schooling, oh, but I know someone who teaches these so wonderful. And it's like, no. Okay? There's wonderful rock stars everywhere, okay? But if your system is fundamentally broken, then those rock stars will be paid better and have a better opportunity in a private free market alternative. It's time to empower choice. People on the left talk all day about choice as it pertains to late-term abortion, but why don't they talk about choice as it pertains to everything else? Monopolies don't work. Monopolies never work, especially monopolies that have been granted an exclusive monopoly by force, by the power of the monopoly state. The most important thing we need to be doing is thinking about the role models that we're providing for our children. And the role models that we want are not going to be found in some government political candidacy, and they're not going to be found in some government curriculum. It's going to be found in the things that you do, the heroes that you cultivate around your family. I'm of this belief. I talk about it a lot. And I titled this episode today, if you find it online. The title of today's episode is called the Personhood Revolution of Jesus. And it's based on the idea that we have to imitate the personhood revolution of Jesus to unlock the human potential lying right under our noses. What do I mean by that? What I mean is, so many folks tell you Jesus is just a ticket into an insider club. He's just a ticket that gets you an external status as it relates to those who don't go to your church or whatever. He's kind of just an object that you put in your back pocket. But I would say to you that if you really want to call yourself an imitator of Jesus, which is what the word Christian means, that if you imitate Jesus, you'll learn how to think the way Jesus thinks. And Jesus thought of the groupthink and the sacred cows of his time. He saw through the lies. He saw through the whitewashed tombs that looked pretty on the outside, but were full of corpses on the inside. He saw through the trickery. He saw through the lie of the state, and he dismantled it through nonviolence. And because he had this ability to smell and to expose the groupthink and to have this critical analysis that we can imitate by looking at what he did in his life, we have what I call the personhood revolution. You know, much of society, they didn't respect human life. If you were to walk the roads in a Roman city in Jesus' time, you would have been seeing children screaming, babies, infants left abandoned on the side of the road. Did you know that? Infants, that was not even something to be horrified. If we see a child abandoned today, it's a huge story. Back then, it was just another day in the park. And Jesus saw that reality, and he said, God desires mercy, not sacrifice. And that has impacted the Western tradition for many years now. And it's shaped the way we think about the problems we have. But I think we need to think harder. And I think we need to imitate this more. Because if we imitate Jesus' life and stop doing it half-heartedly, doing it in a half-baked way, we'll stop looking to politics to find our solutions. Politics is a zero-sum, dead-end game. It's a never-ending search for scapegoats. It's always looking for someone to blame. It's always looking for a common enemy to create meaning and order and unity around a group. That's what you see all over the headlines. It's always looking for somebody else to demonize. But demonization doesn't work because Jesus is king. And he said it's finished. We need to find folks who imitate Jesus' ability to think for himself in the face of the crowd. Folks who can innovate and find secrets of nature right under our nose. We've talked about them on our science program for 2 years now. Things like elemental transmutation, things like 24/7 solar panels, things like non-toxic metabolic therapies for mental health. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do. You see, for everything, if you solve a problem like curing big diseases, then you don't have to worry about paying for health care with universal health care. If you solve problems like mental health, like Dr. Chris Palmer, who we've had on this program a couple of times, Harvard psychiatrist, who's healing people with schizophrenia even, depression, bipolar disorder, using a ketogenic therapy. And he's having significant, amazing results. What does that do for our debt? What does that do for the opportunities for our country to heal as a society and to create the role models we've been looking for, that we need? Having energy too cheap to meter. What does that do for the opportunity of abundance for everybody? We don't want to tear people down. You can tear people down all day long. You're still going to get stuck in the dark ages. Joe Biden says he's the light. He's not the light. He is surrounded in darkness. The whole project of his whole project is based on the idea of trying to get us to worship the state. And even Donald Trump is in that same matrix. He at least has the courage to think for himself on a few things that are very important, things like protecting our national interests in terms of not becoming just another cog in some kind of global governance scheme. And he has the courage to do something about criminal justice reform, even if it's a first small step. And he has the courage to say we got to end the endless wars. He hasn't started a new one, certainly hasn't ended the ones he should, though. but he does need to end those. But he has somewhat of a small step, and that's fine. But that's not what we're going to look for. We're not going to be just another, look, you got 10,000 programs on television and radio that'll tell you just stick to Team Red or Team Blue. But on this program, on Neighbor's Choice, we're going to empower you to take charge of history and to change it fundamentally by the choices you make. Both the small things like the role model you provide for your family and friends around you, and also those big things. You could be the next Nikola Tesla. Maybe it's you listening to this program. We'd love to hear from you. Email me, hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. We want to hear from you, and we'll be back in just a moment.
It's Trump versus Biden, and the swing states like Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and others will decide. Tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, Newsmax TV's Grant Stinchfield reveals the insider polls with Dick Morris. Get Stinchfield and Newsmax TV on DirecTV, Xfinity, Dish, Fios, Spectrum, Uverse, Cox, Optimum, Suddenlink, Mediacom. Newsmax is free on Roku, YouTube, Zumo, Pluto, Apple TV, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, smart TVs, or download the free Newsmax TV app from your smartphone. Newsmax TV. Watch it today.
At about a minute 30.
When you're stressed, you just don't feel like yourself. New Natrol Relaxia, a full line of drug-free supplements to help you manage occasional stress and anxiety. A special blend of herbals keeps you feeling calm and balanced throughout the day. Because when there's less stress, there's more you. Try new Natrol Relaxia. Learn more at relaxiamood.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Hey, it's Melissa Fox from Good Morning Orlando. Join me Thursday nights at 9 o'clock when I do my thing called Connection Show. It's relationship radio with a twist. We invite experts in the field to come and help us out with everything from relationship problems to health questions and more. Sponsored by Stages of Life Medical Institute in Longwood every Thursday night at 9 o'clock. Listen to the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Search Connection Show.
From unlikely heroes to world-changing tragedies and powerful examples of the American spirit, there's a whole side of American history that's been pushed to the shadows.
Within a few short
30 seconds.
Radium's future grew to be the new bright and shiny object, but Marie's beautiful, glowing miracle had a darker side.
Get ready for a tour of American history unlike any other. Get ready for American Shadows. Find American Shadows on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
From the Cold War to the coronavirus, covering the news you need for 65 years. News Radio WFLA Orlando.
So if you look at the headlines on Drudge Report, he's pointing out that Donald Trump looked like his dragging his right leg. And that just sums up the glory of politics, no matter which team your characters are. Looking, whether it's Biden or Trump, you're looking at these people and you're saying, are you a god or are you not? Can you handle the world's problems? Looking to a God, looking to a Savior. Both the ones who adore these characters and the ones who hate them. At some point, the line between the both is hard to see. But they're looking and analyzing these 70-year-old people. His foot's dragging. Joe Biden can't remember where he's at. And you look at that and you say, how pathetic is it that we are scrutinizing these people as our so-called gods? Will you save us? Can you solve everything for us? The same lie that humans have been bedazzled by for thousands of years. And here we are still trying to believe in it. It's the ultimate fake news, the idea that human beings, that men can be gods. That's the biggest and the ultimate lie of all time. And that's the same lie that destroys our ability to get along. That's the same lie that robs us of lives, years of our lives, spending, chasing the rat race of consumerism, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to have what other people have because you think it'll make you somehow feel better, and it never does. It's like drinking salt water to have your thirst quenched when you're thirsty. It's the same lie that ends up robbing people's years of their lives because they get locked up for victimless crime laws, because we say to those same would-be gods, save us from our desire, save us from our addictions. We're scared of alcohol, ban it. And so they said, okay, we'll ban it. We'll ban alcohol. They did that during Prohibition. And what do you know? Tampa had a 75 murder per capita rate. You know, that's double what Detroit and Chicago are today. When they got rid of the alcohol prohibition, well, golly, that murder rate plummeted. It's almost as if supply and demand works. Isn't it amazing? How come conservatives don't understand that? They say they talk a big game about free markets, and yet they can't even understand the basic idea that if you ban something, it creates an obscene profit margin for black market people to provide. Somehow they can't get that? No wonder they're getting their clocks cleaned by the corporate communists on the left, because they don't stand for what they say they stand for. They don't stand for liberty. If they did, they'd actually act it. They'd get rid of this Leviathan. But no, it's too profitable for politicians on the right to just carve up the market and rig it on behalf of their corporatist friends and then use the rhetoric of liberty to sell it. That's fake. And it's worse than the left in some sense, because at least the left tells you they're corporate communists. The right tries to quote Bastiat and all these liberty quotes, and then they give you corporatism themselves. They give you a rigged, big, giant, out-of-control Leviathan state, and they print trillions of dollars out of thin air, and they rig every market, making it difficult. You can't start a business in this economy. Try to start a travel company. Try to start a lawn care. You can't do anything. There's a regulation for everything. You got to have a permit, this thing, that thing, this fee, that bond, this thing, that thing. It's a mess. Then you try to swim, and I see this image on Lake Jackson's Parks and Recreation in Texas, and there's a woman, she's got to wear a mask as she's swimming in the swimming pool. You can't even swim in a swimming pool now without having to have a mask, apparently. Somebody sent this image to me. They got an aquatic schedule at Lake Jackson Parks and Recreation. They got a poor woman, having to wear a COVID mask in the swimming pool. How in the world is a virus going to get you in a chlorine pool? You know what that reminds me of? That's called fear. The rule of fear is what we have. And the rule of fear never gives you anything you want. It won't give you the school education you want. It won't give you the clean air you want. It won't give you the food you want to taste. It won't give you the satisfaction of the job that you really want to do. It won't give you the maximization of your talents and your creativity and the things that stir your soul. Fear never gives you anything. But that's all these sorry wannabe gods in the state have to offer is fear, fear, fear. Trust in me and I will save you. Bow to me and I'll give you everything in the world. Where have we heard that before? I'll be your hero. I'll be your God. That's what they tell us. And all they do to make us believe in it is their fear. Scaring us, making us feel isolated. Can't even see Thanksgiving. Now they want to have Thanksgiving by Zoom. They want you watching your Thanksgiving turkey from Zoom. That is the rule of fear. The opposite of that is courage. Where's the courage? Courage comes from you. You keep thinking to yourself, well, I'll just wait for somebody else to do the courage stuff. And you keep doing that, and that means you're living in fear. And if you do that, everybody else is going to imitate you around you. And that's what we call the bystander effect. That's when everybody's waiting for somebody else to do something to save the situation. Everybody's looking for some kind of hero to show up. The hero's you sitting along the side of the road as that car's on fire, and you've got somebody in there. You need to get some help. You need to do something. because there's a little mother in there with a baby or something. You've got to be the one that steps up to the plate and gets the action going. You may not be able to do it all, but if you start moving in that direction, other people are going to move in the right direction too. That's called courage. That's the opposite of the rule of fear. The rule of fear is what keeps your mind in prison. It's what keeps you chasing after vapors, illusions. Meanwhile, there's so much you could be working on. We've highlighted it on this program, people creating nuclear energy at low temperature. We've had those folks on this program. We've had folks who talk about transmutation of elements from one to another. See, that's the truth. And the truth is so much more exciting than the fake news. The fake news doesn't have anything to offer you but fear and division. So what's it going to be? You've got courage or fear. Courage will give you your freedom, but courage is going to be a little trickier. It's going to be a little harder. It's going to be a little scarier. But in the end, it'll give you more reward because it's worthwhile. It's the journey that you're meant to be on. It's the hero's journey. You're not looking for a savior. You've got to get up out of the boat in the midst of the storm and start walking on water. And when you do that, you'll realize that it wasn't so scary after all, that you can change the world, but it starts in our neighborhoods. It starts in the things that nobody's seeing. So right now, I want you to think about that. How are you going to start being the change that will revolutionize the world as Jesus did in his life? I'm David Gronowski. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Godspeed.
It's great, David. Have a great night, Ed.